Okay, well, welcome again, everyone who is here. We still have more people coming in, but in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. With that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Tom Keith and let him get us started.
Thank you so much, Donna, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Keith, president of the Sisters of Charity Foundation of South Carolina, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees and our staff and the congregation of the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine, welcome to the inaugural release of our anti-poverty advocacy agenda. Before moving forward with our program, we'd like to begin with an Indigenous land acknowledgement for the Cherokee East Nation, whose land our physical building currently resides on. We gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose ancestral homelands we not only gather, but are now called to protect as we advocate for the reduction of poverty here in South Carolina. We seek to build bridges to communities that is reflective of our understanding of history and our commitment to a better future. I'll now offer a prayer, and immediately following the prayer, our board chair, Andy Folsom, will provide a message from the Foundation Board of Trustees. Let us pray. Lord, we cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end war. For we know that you have made the world in a way that people must find their own path to peace within themselves and with their neighbors. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end starvation, for you have already given us the resources with which to feed the entire world, if we would only use them wisely. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to root out prejudice, for you have already given us eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end despair, for you have already given us the power to clear away slums and to give hope if we would only use our power justly. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end disease, for you have already given us great minds with which to search our cures and healing if we only use them constructively. Therefore, we pray to you instead, O God, for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of just pray, to become instead of merely to wish. Amen. I'd like to now turn it over to Andy Folsom, our board chair. Andy?
Thank you, Tom, for that powerful message. As Tom said, I'm Andy Folsom, chair of the Board of Trustees of the Sisters of Charity Foundation. I'm very happy to welcome all of you. A lot of participants here, and it's a testament to the importance of this message and this webinar. On behalf of our entire board, I want to thank our staff, Chyna, Donna, Tom, and the rest of the staff who's, I'm sure, listening in, but whose pictures are not showing up. This is your work, and you do it with the support of so many involved in the community, but leading, and we are grateful for you. When staff and board first began sharing externally that we were in the process of developing an advocacy agenda, we were met with questions of its relevance to our mission, critiques on effectiveness, and a discussion of why a philanthropic entity would be committed to this aspect of change making. Today, we seek to answer those questions. I will start by addressing the first item. In 2019, as the board and staff gathered to discuss the strategic direction of the organization, we all overwhelmingly agreed that our efforts and commitment to those experiencing poverty and our grantee partners needed to go beyond grant making. Our belief is that in addition to our long-standing stewardship funds through grants to amazing nonprofits across the state, we needed to develop a deeper understanding of those experiencing poverty in South Carolina and present clear pathways for future engagement in community. The release of our statewide poverty study in January this year strengthened our resolve to usher in change in systems that have created barriers and structures that cause or exacerbate poverty for South Carolina. This webinar is another step in a 3-year journey, which included the efforts of all members of our staff, intentional internal education, and increased board engagement. In advocating for those experiencing poverty, we all must begin having a deeper conversation, moving beyond blaming individuals for personal choices and choosing to reveal and dismantle structural barriers that stand in the way of progress. This shift in focus puts the onus on the collective, thereby ensuring we are a better community members to all of those around us. For more information on these structural barriers, I encourage you to reference our recent poverty study led by Dr. Melinda Merrill at the University of South Carolina, Arnold School of Public Health. A link will be provided for you in the chat. On behalf of our board, I share openly with staff and our community members joined here today that we are in full support of this new venture and excited for the increased intentional partnerships as we work toward the reduction in poverty in a beautiful state in a South Carolina where everyone thrives. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Andy, for so eloquently stating the rationale for this very important work. I'm Dr. Lee Pearson, a member of the Policy, Communication, and Research Committee of the Foundation's board, and it's been my honor to work alongside board members and Foundation staff to bring us to this moment. The Foundation's anti-poverty agenda is one that is both community-centered and data-informed. A major step in its development was the release last year of the statewide poverty study, which examined the systemic and policy factors that lead to, reinforce, and exacerbate poverty in South Carolina. Upon review of that study's methodologies, you will see that community voices were centered by valuing them empirically. Concurrent to that study, Foundation staff began what has been a 2-year journey of intentional community outreach efforts to learn from and build relationships with individuals and organizations with expertise in our areas of focus. With lived experience as our guide, not only have some of our grantee partners assisted us, but our tapestry of community experts extends to other philanthropic partners, individual organizers, community leaders, social movement builders, and grassroots organizations across the state. Many of you are with us today, and we thank you for your input, your honest feedback, and your critiques throughout this rather arduous process. This advocacy agenda is another step in the Foundation's organizational transparency that allows community members to hold us accountable. With a topic as broad as poverty reduction, it was difficult to develop an agenda that was both aspirational and attainable. The agenda's multi-year timeframe lends to the understanding that these issues are complex and change will take time. As we continue to build our strategy, your input will remain an important part of that process. Our strength is most certainly in our collective wisdom. As we present the topics today, I encourage you to think of any organization tackling these issues in your community, the individuals who are committed to and speak out on these issues, and any additional areas for engagement or support. Please share them with us. We all have a role to play in the reduction of poverty in our state. Thank you again for joining us today. It is now my distinct privilege to turn the program over to the Foundation's Research and Policy Director, Chyna Phillips, to present and explain our various agenda items.
Thank you so much, Lee, for that beautiful introduction and totally laying out our time together. Everyone here, I welcome you. Again, my name is Chyna Phillips, and I serve as the Research and Policy Director here at the Foundation. Why I'm extremely excited about this opportunity is because not only is it our time to be a little bit more intentional, but it builds off of two important things. One, our amazing foundation's expertise that we've had over years, and then also our community members. Our agenda items are simply an extension of existing work in the community, and we're excited to leverage our own partnerships to move the work forward. So, brief overview here. I wanted to explain the difference between an advocacy agenda and a policy agenda. So for those of you to understand while we are reviewing the various topics, please note that some of them will have policy implications, and then there are some where we will have to be a little bit more intentional with forming organizational partnerships, community organizing, and supporting movements that are already happening. Next, as Dr. Pearson has so beautifully laid out, it is community-centered and mission-driven. All elements that we have laid out before you are ones that have been vetted by community members, but know that is only the start. And we hope that all of you will encourage others to join in and give feedback as well. These are priorities, not strategies. At the end of the day, we know that it is slow moving and it will be a multi-year uphill battle for some of them. And it's important to build strategies together. Once again, community-centered. Last purpose of this is, of course, to have increased transparency. We would love for you to continue to hold us accountable. Putting our ideals out on the forefront is a way for communities to not only be a part of the process, but also to make sure that we are doing what we said that we set out to do. Last, as Dr. Pearson already stated, the selected topic was very hard. I know that some of you will be maybe frustrated that some of your passion items may not be a part of this list, but it was very hard due to capacity and also the existing work, why we came down to it. We are happy to answer have any conversations after this about how we came up with this list. Additionally, I would like to say, please listen for connections or alignments to you, your community, and any organizations that you may know out in the community. We like to say to utilize both the chat and the Q&A tab. The chat is for one, if you feel that this is something that you really enjoy and you like it, put it in the chat. We're a religious organization, so we love a good amen. But then you can also utilize the chat if you have an organization that you think definitely aligns. Know that myself and leadership will be going through the chat afterwards for looking for any clues on where to next, where's the next stop in South Carolina that we need to make. So please add it. Any specific questions that you have, please add it to the Q&A portion here on your screen, and that will allow Donna to then see those later on. So now let's jump into the meat of it, friends. For each topic, I will be doing a quick connection to the mission, some supporting data that we found, and then some opportunities, I would say. So these are clear priority examples of things that the foundation is already thinking of. And so I'm excited to share those with you. Know that the inclusion or having a topic that is not already on the list does not mean that it is over, right? We can always look at more things. So please, again, put it in the chat if you have a thought. We are excited that one of our first bucket items here will be supporting pathways to economic mobility. We have 3 beautiful different topics, but the first is economic mobility in advancing upward mobility and income mobility, supporting workforce development, and expanding access to affordable credit. First, upward and income mobility. So when you think of upward and income mobility, this is one that we really saw income inequality is an indicator of the ability for certain groups to accumulate access to wealth. Over time, these disparities in wages and earnings and assets to the accumulation in wealth is a deterioration to their ability to wealth build. So this is something that in our study that we notice spot on. For nationally, women own 48 cents to the dollar to men. And then in South Carolina, African-American women and women of color own 5 cents compared to every dollar. Some areas of interest that we thought immediately connected is the pay equity across gender and racial lines. We thank good organizations like REN, who is also a grantee partner, who's put this up on our radar multiple times, and many of you as well. Also talking about the livable wage justice. It's very important to us because of our investment in the sustainability studies and all of that. This is something that we've always been focusing on. The next is also trusting a long time community leaders and organizations in this space. Again, our advocacy agenda is an extension of work that's already existed. And so SCASID is an amazing partner that we are happy to support in a lot of their work moving forward. Workforce development is another piece to our economic mobility bucket. We intend to support policies that increase access to employment opportunities through workforce development and transportation. The association between economic stability and poverty may seem obvious to some, but individual employment opportunities drives one's ability to have financial security and avoid experiencing poverty. Some of the things highlighted in our larger study was that individuals, although they had access to some jobs, they couldn't go there, right? They had a lack of transportation in their community. Over 130,000 South Carolinian jobs in 2017 were also non-primary, indicating that people had multiple jobs. For those experiencing poverty, we know that when looking from a strength-based perspective, we know that they are resilient, able to figure out a way out of no way, it seems, for many. But how often do we hear that? And that's the end of the discussion. Our hope is that we'll start having deeper conversations and also leveraging our existing partnerships with many municipalities. I thank you all who are a part of this call as well, to advocate for public transportation advocacy networks. We have some amazing philanthropic partners who've done some great work in Greenville, and we can certainly learn from them as well. Workforce development and education, paid family leave. And then additionally, what's on our radar with the criminalization of those experiencing poverty is the Ban the Box initiatives. There is amazing leaders, grassroots leaders who are helping individuals push this forward. And simply by the reduction of one box, asking whether or not they were a part of the criminal legal system, opens up a window for opportunities for them to get hired because we reduce that implicit bias. Additionally, other reintegration efforts for those previously a part of the criminal legal system is very important to us. And I'll pause here to say that we are intentionally using criminal legal system as opposed to criminal justice system, because some would say that justice was not always a part of their journey within that system. Next is access to affordable credit. We intend to work to expand access to affordable credit by ensuring the equitable availability of affordable lending while alleviating oppressive and cost debt burdens in underserved communities. This is one that we are extremely excited by because for far too long, individuals have been trapped in the debt burden. The financial burden of paying off debt may be difficult and additionally impacts individuals with credit reports and can result in limited borrowing ability. For many individuals, they live in an unbanked or underbanked area. 22.9% of South Carolinian households were deemed underbanked, which was the 10th highest percent across all states. Without access to financial services and capitals, individuals cannot access safe credit. So some areas of interest for us is being a proud partner of the SC Fair Lending Alliance. For more information, I would tell you all, please, after this, to go to capratesc.com. They just released their intentions in an amazing press conference this week, and I encourage all of you to check that out and potentially support them in the future. Additionally, we intend to support existing coalitions. Again, in the chat and other times, if you know of any groups already kind of thinking through what this looks like, how we intend to leverage our voice as a partner for the SC Fair Lending Alliance and others, is to ensure that they have access to other community members doing this work and interested in these populations to help share and educate populations on what is actually happening within community. I'm moving a little bit faster here to ensure that we can be good stewards of our time with our 1 hour window and still have time for questions. The next big bucket is the desire to advance health equity. As a former or a public health practitioner and a proud graduate of the Arnold School of Public Health, I'm super excited about this because it expands our understanding of health, not only from a medical point of view, but from the understanding of what are we doing to ensure that communities are healthy, that people are thriving fully. And so the 3 ways we intend to do that is support economic security programs, advocate for prosperous communities, and promote quality early childhood education. So the first, support economic programs by advocating to expand housing assistance, Tanf, tax credit, and programs such as SNAP. Something that we noticed within the past few years is that a lot of social services, especially the ones listed on your screens, took an attack where individuals was doubting the relevancy of these programs. Now, not saying that these programs are without critique. We do understand that for those experiencing poverty, this is needed because as the systems are still not operating as effective as it should, we are hoping that this is an opportunity to ensure that individuals know the importance of these programs. And so areas of interest for us is extending housing vouchers and food assistance, strengthening the earned income tax credit and child care assistance programs, providing universal child care allowance, and supporting the efficacy of our existing social systems. We have a great relationship with the Department of Social Services here, and we intend to continue that partnership. But a part of that partnership is ensuring that individual voices and own experiences with dealing with these child well-being systems is one that is a positive experience. And making sure that community voices is heard at all levels of leadership within these social systems. Next. Prosperous communities. Again, when we think of health equity, it is one where we are trying to decide how can we ensure that individuals are operating and existing in a world where they feel safe, seen, and supported. So we intend to ensure that we advocate for the advancement of policies and initiatives that equitably promote prosperous environments that support safety, health, and overall well-being. So what does that mean? One of the things that we noticed as we were talking with community is that individuals said that they felt that in their community, they had a sense of safety, but after businesses came in, they experienced high levels of push out, and now their communities has changed. And so for us, we intend to ensure that there's equitable land usage and a community livability plan. How are we ensuring that there are sidewalks and making sure that there are councils that are actually meeting to ensure safety within community? Again, through our partnerships with municipalities, we've been able to be critical, but then also glean understanding from both inside and outside. The hate crime bill is one that speaks to ensuring that individuals feel safe beyond just a matter, just feel safe in the sense of my skin color or my racial ethnicity is not one that puts me in harm's way. Food justice networks is one that we, in our research study, really came to our attention, especially as it relates to grocery store closures and what that means for communities experiencing high food deserts and food swamps. Lastly, supporting the expansion of Medicaid. This is one when engaged in the advocacy space. Some would tell you not to tread lightly in those waters. I think we step out on the courage of our faith and the sisters, and then also glean a lot of expertise and inspiration from other funders who have gathered in this space. We thank our partners for holding us accountable as a Health Legacy Foundation, and also our other funders at the table who ensure that we are not alone in this fight. We appreciate you, and we have learned so much already. The last is, of course, housing. Gentrification and community push out is one that we cannot ignore, especially with high eviction rates and high jobs coming to South Carolina, of one that we are very excited about. But we must always ask ourselves, what are we doing to ensure that the communities that are actually from there feel that they can stay there and benefit from all of the rich changes happening? Next is early childhood and education. We plan to promote policies advocating for quality early childhood interventions and increased positive educational progression outcomes for all. Educational attainment serves as a strong foundation for increasing economic mobility and financial security later on in life. A few things that was brought to our attention, and if you live in South Carolina and breathe this air, you know that it is very hard for individuals, especially depending on where you live, due to historic knowledge of how communities are invested in and how educational systems are invested in. Many institutions do not get fully funded. Multiple studies have found the connection between the socioeconomic status of an individual and their child's academic achievement, or outcomes rather. Fortunately, early intervention is one of the things that we can do to mitigate adverse childhood experiences, of which we are excited about supporting further education on. We thank our community partners who have always always focused on this, the Children's Trust to be specific. Childhood hunger is something that we would love to focus on as it pertains to educational outcomes. And then of course, the education reform bills as well. The addition of quality early childhood interventions is something that we needed to add, especially in the sense of South Carolina having a historical minimally adequate focus on childhood education. So quality and ensuring that they have an educational progression is important to us. The next bucket is human dignity. And I take some time to pause there because for us, this is one that infuses our extension of our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space. Increasing civic leadership and participation is one that is very important to us, and I will read verbatim each of these issues. Every human being is uniquely valuable and therefore should be accorded the highest respect and care. With the understanding, we will commit 2, working with communities to create increased opportunities for civic leadership and partnership. To advocate for planners and designers of communities and systems around them. One of the things that we know is that when individuals have proximity to decision-making, then communities start to shift and change in a positive way. Those closest to the problems are often closest to the solutions, but often do not have a microphone added to the space. And our hope with this is not only to increase civic engagement, but then also making sure that they are leading discussions. The next is executing timely, equitable, and just responses. In accordance with our organizational values, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging statement, we will trust the voices of our community and remain nimble to its need. As issues arise that are unaligned with our mission or go against our values, we will be positioned to lead responses in a timely and thoughtful manner. Again, we have noticed in recent years that silence sometimes adds to the problem. We ensure that with the work of our amazing director of DEI, Erica Wooten, she will help us to make sure that our responses are timely and just. This offers an opportunity for anyone who don't often see themselves aligned with our Catholic identity and mission, an opportunity to share their own lived experiences, and also how can we help them along the way. The last is to advocate for cross-sector partnerships. Honestly, poverty is one that is very nuanced and very hard. So we know that we cannot complete this alone. So advocating for increased opportunities for cross-sector partnership to build stronger institutions and networks that serve those most in need is very important. For us, next steps are simple. We intend to increase community engagement, making sure that when we say that, it is a continuous outreach to the community, ensuring that individuals feel seen and heard throughout our entire process. As I shared with you, we have not went through our strategies fully because we want the community to be a part of that discussion as well. It is hard as a person who loves to move quickly to ensure that pausing is a part of our timeline, to ensure that individuals can be a part of that. Shared community learning. We know that a lot of individuals have a lack of understanding of what poverty looks like today. And it's important for us to learn together if we say that this is a problem that we need to fix together. Again, increased cross-sector partnerships. This extends outside of our amazing grantee partners who have long been partners in this fight, but also thinking through community organizers, grassroots leaders, private sector individuals, and the systems that individuals experiencing poverty often find themselves in. We also want ongoing community input. If there's one thing that you can get from any of this, is the idea that community input is very important to us. We would love to hear from you, especially as we know for many, as we don't fund individuals, this is a way for the individuals who we know are community leaders on so many of these topics to be a part of the foundation's work. So if you know anyone who is out there constantly, always pushing back, always ensuring that these are things that are moving forward, we would love to hear about that. And then lastly, tracking impact over time. We will continue to be transparent with you and share our successes and our pitfalls. It's not always easy to do so, but I think when we are thinking about what success looks like for the next 5 years or however long we want to focus on these specific topics, it's one that we want to ensure has an opportunity for others to tell us and community members to tell us what success actually looks like. So with that, those are our 3 big bucket items: supporting pathways to economic mobility, advancing health equity, and prioritizing human dignity. 9 focus areas within them 3 within each bucket, and we hope that you can join us. I'll turn it over to you, Donna.
Thank you, Chyna. As you all can see, the creation of this agenda and the choosing of these priorities was done with incredible care and thought. As the Vice President of Programs, I wanted to take this time to say that our grants team and our policy and research team are 100% on the same page. Our grant making helped to inform the research study, and the research study has helped inform the agenda. For 25 years, we have supported organizations, many of whom are on this call, who are the frontline service delivery experts. And we want you to know that your voices were heard and will continue to be heard. As we move into 2022, our grants team will use the poverty study and the anti-poverty advocacy agenda as a lens to use as we review new applicants and continue to get to know our current grantee partners. Our systems level change grantee partners in particular, many of whom are also here, you already fall into the agenda priorities, and we will hopefully be partners in our effort to make real and sustainable change. For those of you on the call that have been grantee partners in different categories and have been for a while, please know that your work still meets our mission, and we will continue to consider funding your work in the future. By now, my hope is that each of you have taken the time out of your day to listen to this webinar, fully understand the why and the how of our anti-poverty advocacy agenda. Building on the legacy of our founding Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine, we know that without a shadow of a doubt, we cannot do this work alone. I think it's been said at least a dozen times by different people. We have a long history of partnerships and collective impact work, and we are grateful for this next phase in our journey toward reducing poverty in our state. Thank you to all of our partners who have helped us get to this point. It has been said in many of our promo materials that we are co-creators in this work of change with you all. Particularly want to make sure that we acknowledge our local municipal partners, our government officials, our agency officials, all of the grassroots leaders and community organizers, as well as our fellow philanthropic partners who are with us in this journey. We need you, and we'll continue to work with you. Now is the time, if you haven't already, to put some questions in the question and answer box. We have about 20 minutes, which is a good amount of time that we can ask our panelists some questions. So I'm going to get started. The first one that I see here, Tom, Chyna, Andy, if you're available to answer, what is the board's role in executing our advocacy plan?
Have at it first, and then I'm happy to share, and sure Lee will too.
Well, thank you, Andy. In our case, the board serves as sort of the strategy arm, looking ahead for ways that we can have impact. And as was said earlier, our grant making is one way to have impact, but the work that we can do to create change in our communities must be much broader. And I think our board not only provides vision, they provide ongoing support and partners in this whole advocacy agenda. And I think that will be hugely important as our board serves as our community connections in many cases, not only here in Columbia, but throughout the state, Charleston, Greenville, and other places. So our board is an integral part, I believe, of this direction that we're going in this move towards more impactful work outside of grant making.
Yeah, thanks, Tom,
Andy?
for the question, Erica. I would echo what Tom said. I think our board, and rightly so, serves as a governance body and a strategic arm to help push the staff. But this is we're fortunate, as I mentioned in my comments, to have an incredible staff that knows this world much better than we do as a board. So I think we're going to rely upon the staff and all of their connections with so many of you and the rest of the many community members in South Carolina to drive this mission forward. But as a board, we'll be here to hold them accountable from a staff standpoint and also support them and make sure we can help through connections like Tom said, or just things like this, showing our support that this is coming with a strong approval and endorsement from our board.
Donna, if I can, I'll jump in here to also share some clear examples of what that looks like. So I was a staff of one, right? Trying to make all this happen. And board rolled up their sleeves and they truly did support me. So our committee meetings looked like power mapping, working committee meetings, making sure that they use and leverage their own relationships within private sectors to say, this is an organization that you should meet with, talk to, and kind of move forward. Additionally, Dr. Pearson and Tiger Wells, who's a member of our committee, met separately with Donna, Tom, and I, and to really kind of focus on that first draft. This is probably draft 7 or 8, right, Dr. Tom? But it was our board that really helped because with Lee and Tiger's background in policy, we pulled on them. So as a small staff, we were able to utilize our board in a great way. And I'm so appreciative of them. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you all. A very important question that keeps showing up is will we be sharing these slides? And yes, the recording is, we are recording the webinar. It will be available and we will be sending out an email after this that will have the PowerPoint slides as well as a PDF of the actual agenda. So answered that for you. Another question that we have is what specific education reform bills are we going to be supporting? Is there anything specifically that we can talk about right now?
Thank you so much for the question. At this point, no, we cannot share. I think right now we will be kind of reviewing all of the bills, trying to decide on what capacity looks like internally. And I will share, we're thinking through of potentially bringing on another staff member if we could. And I think that will allow us the opportunity to see if this year we will be very focused based off of the expertise that we're bringing in internally, very focused on the policy side or more so advocacy. As soon as that goes live, we will actually share that with you. Part of our learning journey would be once we have identified the specific policies that we truly care about and are behind or in opposition of, we will share that with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Another question, in the goal to help those underserved citizens in the rural communities, will that include opportunities to improve the quality of life for isolated senior citizens?
So I think isolation came up a lot, especially in our work with kinship care. That is something that we were excited about, that it came up, and one that we had the network to address it and speak of. In terms of actually sitting within the advocacy agenda, I don't think so. But what's beautiful, because we already have the existing networks that are engaged within that population, they've already started talking about that. So I thank the current chair of the South Carolina Kinship Care Advisory Council, Megan Branham, and the incoming chair, Brian Burrows. And I will definitely share that this is something that you guys brought up, and then we can continue with that. An example of how we've tried to kind of address that is because during the pandemic, it was very hard to reach our seniors. And so we called on Richland County Library because they did a lot of telethons or I think it's telenetworks, abilities to have an entire program over the phone. And so we got that program from them. And then we also infused that into the work within the council. And so they did that a few times and engaged some legislators to ensure that they were both seen, heard, supported. And based off of that first meeting, we were able to include some more social services on the second call, because you are absolutely right. Isolation for our senior populations was one that was definitely brought to us earlier last year. So thank you for lifting that up.
Okay. Another question is, what skills training do you see offering for our grantee partners so that they are best able to advocate for removal of barriers that we have identified?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question, and I really like that. So we have had conversations, especially when thinking through what is a role that a funder should play in this space. And certainly, I don't think that we should be the ones leading that training, but definitely supporting existing organizations already providing trainings who have long-term standing in this. So I think we have spoken with a few organizations, I won't put them on the spot now, to see what does that look like. There is another amazing organization that is very specific, has started their own fellowship for that. And so I think when thinking through training for additional nonprofits and individuals, it would be connecting them to the existing work that's already happening, because I think that's another way that we can support our nonprofit partners, right? Not stepping on their toes, but making sure that we kind of elevate their work and what they're doing and their expertise that we also learn from.
Thank you, Chyna.
Mhm.
Do we see increasing our engagement with state agencies to achieve our objectives? Some of whom are on the call.
Yes. And so if you are on the call, please reach out to us. Dr. Pearson has been very good in trying to make sure that we had a connection with DHEC, because again, individuals experiencing poverty are continuously trapped in these various systems. We know this to be true, y'all. And so a part of it is kind of leveraging our experience to make sure that we, one, have opportunity to get into those spaces, but then also giving up our seat in those spaces and in those rooms to ensure that the community members can be there. And I think what's been good is that for a few organizations, we're certainly not and have relationships with all of them. So hopefully you can help us with the few ones that that we do have relationships with. They know what to expect when a member of Sisters of Charity is a part of the conversation. We're always saying, we're community voices, right? How can we ensure that people are a part of the process? And now that's become an ask that we're very comfortable with, in connecting them with nonprofit leaders and also community members, more specifically, who have access to that. So I welcome any opportunities to increase partnerships.
That's a good segue, Chyna, to a couple of questions that one is, since I mentioned current grantee partners, if an organization is not a grantee but has a similar mission, how can we collaborate toward these efforts? And just another small nonprofit mentioning that they share in similar priorities, and how can they work more closely with us?
Reach out, please. So a part of that 2-year journey was exactly that, right? Where I'm getting comfortable now, right? But where we kind of went out into community and really said, outside of just the individuals that we fund, because we know we have a very regimented way, who are the people really doing the work constantly who may not be connected to a nonprofit, right? I think I went to a person's house and we had a crab boil in the Low Country, talked to the Longshoremen's Union, talked to individuals within the Poor People's Campaign, and got a lot of interesting information. So I think this is a space for us to build those relationships, right? Because lived experience for us is the most important part. Whether you are tied to a nonprofit or not, you can certainly share with us your experience and how to do so. We have a subject matters experts list that we're doing and a speakers bureau kind of thing that we're still thinking through. So what does it look like to monetize individuals' experience when they do come out? What does it look like for when we have a bill that we care about? Who can we call on that's already has a lived experience or an expertise tied to that issue? So please reach out to us because that is a part of that coalition building.
Chyna, if I may add,
Absolutely.
if a nonprofit, whether they're a grantee of the Sisters of Charity Foundation or not, they really can be the eyes and ears of a local community. To me, any kind of advocacy change or advocacy work or policy change has to work from the ground level up. And nobody better that understands their local community and all the challenges and opportunities in that local community than a nonprofit organization providing support there. So whether you're a grantee or not, as Chyna said, reach out to us and we'll make sure you're connected to the network we're building. And your knowledge and expertise on the local level is hugely important to us as we move forward.
Thank you, Tom. Mostly what I'm seeing now, Chyna and everyone, is comments, suggestions for other organizations that we can connect with. So thank you all for taking that seriously when we asked you for that, because we mean it. So just know that your suggestions they're being saved, and we'll be reaching out to you at some point in the near future to help us make those connections. Also, in the chat, if there's a lot in the chat, so the agenda is, the PDF is in the chat. So if you wanted to go ahead and click on it now, you could. It's also on our website. And again, we'll be emailing everything out afterward. Just looking one more time to see. I think you did a fantastic job, Chyna, covering everything. So that kudos to you that there weren't a whole ton of questions, but this is just the beginning of our journey. Even though we've been doing this work for well over 25 years. But y'all, we're just so thankful that you're here. We're thankful that you are with us and that you believe in this state as much as we do, and as much as our Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine do, some of whom are on this call. So thank you, sisters, for being here and supporting us. Thank you to Andy Folsom, our board chair, Lee Pearson, Dr. Pearson, thank you for everything that you did to help make this happen. Tom, you're always supportive and the best president we could ask for. And Chyna, you rocked it. Thank you for your hard work. We're going to go ahead and give y'all 6 minutes back in your day, but be on the lookout for some follow-up information, and hope to see you all soon.